listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Welcome to Second Wind. You know, I created, and I, meaning Joyce Buford, created Second Wind podcast so that I could help you begin and become successful with your second wind journey. And I do that by encouraging you to play full out, starting off with just getting to know who you are and loving who you are. I also like to inspire you to dream bigger. Many times we dream way too big for what can be accomplished, and to inform you about how to get your second wind experience. Now, you realize that I interview some of the best, awesome, magnificent women on my podcast, and that is how I contribute to your journey, because they are contributing their stories. These stories are so interesting and give you so much information that can help you on your path. It's all about connections and support to have success and to learn and to achieve. So I thank you for being here again, because you voted for yourself again. And we are going to get started with today's show. Now, my guest today is Jayne Ellegard. Now, this is magnificent, and you're going to love this because we're talking about money here today. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of women, and so does Jayne. So Jayne created Ellegant Wealth. It's her mission to empower women to show up and own their financial journey with courage, confidence, and wisdom. She grew up in International Falls, Minnesota, getting her undergrad degree at College of St. Scholastica in Duluth, Minnesota, her master's in business administration from the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minneapolis. She married her best friend. Awesome, I love that. After 30 years, they are still together, and they have produced one son who, luckily enough, has married his high school sweetheart as well. While her 34-year career was managing wealth for high net worth individuals and wealthy families, she observed a gap in the financial education women have received. So 2 years ago, Jayne decided to leave her job as senior vice president and follow her passion to provide a warm, welcoming environment for women who experience financial transformation. She believes learning the money game can be fun and achievable for all women. Yay! Welcome. Yay! Yay! I will share with you, Jayne, that when I divorced after 28 years of marriage, I knew how to do a little thing for my household account, but I really didn't have the knowledge of the finances. And so I think it's so common, particularly I'm trying to think it's probably particularly with the 50, 60-year-old women, but it because that's kind of how the structure of the marriage was set up back in the day. But I hope that's changing with our younger women, but I'm not so sure. Nah.
No, it's not.
Oh, no,
Unfortunately, it's not. No.
Oh, tell us about this big decision and why you felt so passionate about this.
I just saw over and over again where, husband and wife would come in for a meeting, and as much as I would try to engage and educate the wife along the way, I could see that she was glazing over, and then the husband would either die or there would be a divorce.
Oh.
And suddenly she was scared and overwhelmed. And I kept thinking to myself, where do I send these women to get educated? Because they missed this piece. And I don't think any of us really received a lot of that education around money and finances, but men tend to talk about it and women don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so women aren't learning about it as a result, whereas men do. I think men look at it more as a competition and it's fun and but women stay away from it.
Right. Yeah. So you decided, and you were aware of the need. And I so agree. There is a strong need out there. And I think there are women willing to step up. I mean, for me, it was kind of step up. I mean, there was no choice. Step
Yeah.
up, girl. And so it has been interesting. My whole advancement in the financial area has not been as aggressive as some, but I'm sure a lot smarter than I used to be. And I can talk a better game than I used to can with my accountant and my stockbroker and all that. But it took a while. It took a while because you're right. There's nobody teaching this.
Right.
Not even my financial advisor was teaching it. So I would think you were very unique in that because you're a woman, you understand, you see it, that it would have been awesome to have you as a financial advisor. But now we can't. So you weren't prepared to do what you're doing, but you took the steps to get into coaching. So kind of share that story with us.
Yeah, about 6 years before I made the decision to leave the corporate world, I just I knew that what I was doing wasn't what I wanted to be doing till I was 65 or 70. And I knew I wanted to work for a lot longer. And so I felt like I need a plan B, but I don't know what that is yet. And so I met with a life coach to start with and decided that I really liked the coaching aspect. And so then I went to a program and became a certified career coach. Mm-hmm. And then I went through a program through the Neuro Leadership Institute to become a brain-based coach, all based on neuroscience. And so I just kept taking steps toward, gaining additional knowledge and education in an area that I just thought would be really interesting and might. Honestly, I didn't know where it was leading, Joyce. I really didn't. I was just kind of doing things and keeping myself, kind of interested and challenged and then I don't know. It all kind of came together. I was listening to a podcast. Love podcasts. Thank you for good. Thank you for the wonderful things that you bring us. But I was listening to a podcast and heard this woman talking about being a financial educator, and I thought, that's it. That's what I want to do. And I want to focus on women just because I've seen the impact and the need for women to really learn so much more. And so that was, it happened. And I told my husband, I said, I think this is it. I think this is what I need to go do. And he said, go do it.
Oh, wonderful.
Bless his heart. Yes.
Bless his little heart. So now explain to me the neurological, how you diverted over to that. Is that because, tell me why.
Yeah, well, the neuroscience, it's just how the brain works. And I just think it's fascinating and how, you kind of making those connections of how you can rewire your brain to help you create new habits and learn something new. And again, I think a big part of what I'm trying to do is kind of almost disrupt what women have typically viewed as the financial world. And so I want them to think about this whole world very differently. I want them to view it as something that they are capable of, that is interesting, that is going to help them achieve, financial security, financial freedom, give them choices. And so part of it, so just the neuroscience really helps me understand how to help get women to that point.
Yeah. There's definitely a mindset that has to switch.
Yes.
And depending upon your age and how long you've been thinking this, and brought up with these old thoughts of, I can't learn that, numbers I don't do,
Yep.
anything over $1,000 I never spend, things like that. That's big work. You're right. It is.
It is. And I think so many women, this has been a long time coming, right? I mean, they grew up being told, oh, don't worry your pretty little head about numbers and finances. And, my dad told me to marry a rich man.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, he basically said, find your knight in shining armor and, let them take care of you. And I think that is how many women were raised. And so trying to get them now to switch that mindset that they've had for years and years and say, no, I'm going to step up. I'm going to take control. I'm going to empower myself, take back my power in this area. And I think that, when women gain confidence in this area, they gain confidence in so many other areas of their lives.
Yeah.
And so I think it is just so incredibly powerful, but it's something that women have just really put to the backside, and they've just allowed their husbands to handle the finances.
Right. I don't know if they allow it. I think it's just taken.
Well,
I'm sorry. I had to kind of question you on that.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, it's some of both, right? I mean, I think it's definitely, I think women feel a lack of self-confidence in this area, but they also feel complacency. It's, oh, I don't really want to deal with it, and he seems to like it, so I'm just going to let him do it. And he's more than happy to take control. And it definitely works both ways. And I would say to people, I understand the whole divide and conquer. We have so much going on in our lives, and and so it's really easy to say, well, you mow the lawn, I'll do the groceries, you do the finances, I'll take care of the kids' doctor appointments. We do that, but this isn't a divide and conquer area. This is something that you both really need to be engaged and involved in.
Yeah, it needs to be, and for the whole reason that you need to know about your finances going forward, whether you take daily participation in them or not. But I realized some of the transition was, I didn't know where things were. I've seen women, particularly who became widows, that they didn't know where their money was. They had never met their financial advisor. Do you stay with the same financial advisor or do you switch? I mean, there's so many questions that with a little prep time can make that very sad time of death easier.
Exactly.
If you're not having to take all that on at one time. Yes, there's overwhelm when they have to take all that on over time, at once.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, when in my mission statement, empowering women to show up and own their financial journey with courage, confidence, and wisdom. The courage is the courage to get in front of the significant life events that will take place, right? We know a significant life event will take place. 8 out of 10 women end up on this journey alone, whether they never marry, they're divorced, or they're widowed. Yes. So at some point in time, most women will need to step up and take responsibility for their financial situation. And so getting in front of it and learning it now, like you said, I mean, when it happens, it's that much harder to try to learn it, especially, like if you're widowed and now you're grieving. Yes. And and when you're divorced, there's all kinds of emotions that are going on when you're going through divorce, and, and then on top of it, realizing that I would have women say to me, Jayne, can I stay in my home?
Yes.
Are my kids still going to be able to go to college?
Yeah.
They truly didn't know. Am I going to be able to retire? And what does this do to my lifestyle? They truly didn't know anything about their financial situation. And I just found that to be so incredibly sad. And so, So that's the courage piece of it. The confidence is the confidence to get involved in the conversation that is taking place today, because the conversation today impacts your financial future. Mm-hmm. And so having, being engaged in that conversation, because only you know what it is you want to achieve with your wealth. Only you know what you want your retirement to look like. And so if you aren't engaging in those conversations, who knows where you may end up. Yeah. And then the wisdom is the wisdom to know the difference, because if you don't understand your financial situation, you probably aren't capable of having the conversations with your parents, your spouse, your children about money that you could and probably should be having. Mm-hmm. And so if not for you, do it for them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's courage. Confidence is the one. I think it's so funny how confidence works. It doesn't take, building a house. It just takes putting on a door to start that incentive. You know what I mean?
I love that.
I mean, just put on a door by yourself and you've got, oh my gosh, I'm powerful. I can do this. Or change the pumper in the toilet. Anything that says you can accomplish in an area that you've not achieved it before, you know nothing about. So, it's a little bitty, it always starts with a little step, just something so little that it can help a person gain momentum. I have to allude to your wonderful handout that you provided because, ladies, it's free. It's a downloadable. Yeah. And I'm always one for downloading things, but it's such a good guide. Mercy, there's a lot of information in there.
Oh, thank you, Joyce.
You have really covered the areas that you talk about how a woman can grow her knowledge, because I'd say most of us would say we're a little behind the game when we become the primary manager of our money. Yep. So you list 3 different areas, and one of them you said is podcasting, which is pretty important these days. It's pretty active these days.
Yes.
Yes. But you also have an excellent list of courses. You offer a course, but you also offer books that they can read and listen to. And now you can get those books on what's the
audio on Audible?
Audio. Yeah. So, and then there was a third one. You remember what that one was?
Yeah, it's it's like, publications, other resources. It's, just even reading, the headlines in the Wall Street Journal, or, it was funny. I had a woman who was taking one of my classes. She said, Jayne, I know it's all about baby steps. So she said, I wanted to share this with you. She said, my financial advisor, I get a weekly email from him, and normally I just delete them right away. She said, but now I've been going through your class, and she said, I haven't deleted them. I haven't actually read them yet, but I haven't deleted them.
Yes. That's a step.
So it's baby steps. And she was so proud, and I was so proud of her. And so, it's, you can't do this all overnight. I mean, I've spent years and years and years learning about this topic. And, I feel like I can help make it a simpler process and, really help you through that it faster, but it takes time and it takes work. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't take effort, because it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you encourage? It'd be wonderful, but certainly I think the first step for women would be to go to your website and look at your courses, because you are the woman with the passion here to encourage and spread the word. And because you're so interested in welcoming the woman, so you could take us at wherever we start. It could be absolutely knowing nothing, and you've been exposed to that woman and know how to move her through. Yes. So I think that's so wonderful. That's a treasure right there. So anyways, the website, your website is www.ellegant, Ellegant Wealth, ELLEGANT wealth.com.
Yeah.
And there you talk about your courses. So what is it that you offer and how do you help the beginning steps?
Well, first I have a book. So the book is the easy, the most least expensive. And so that's Financial Empowerment for Women. Your guide to courage, confidence, and wisdom. Then I offer an online course, which you can do on your own at your own pace. And so that's available all the time. And then I also periodically offer, using the course, a 6-week challenge where we meet, whoever's going through the 6-week challenge, we meet each week on Zoom for an hour, hour and a half. And so after watching the videos in the online course, you get the opportunity to come in and ask the questions and share your stories with the other women. Yeah. And that to me is really what's so, it just makes it a lot more fun and engaging, and it holds you accountable because we're going through it at a weekly pace. And so you kind of have to keep up. And so it really encourages you to really stay with it. And then in the Twin Cities, I also offer the in-person where we spend 12 hours together. And I offer that through a course over a 6-week time period, but I also offer it in a retreat format. So a 2-day, so a Saturday, Sunday, or a Friday, Saturday. So people can fly in for the weekend if that's something that they're interested in doing the in-person. And that is where my heart is. That's what I love the most, is when women come together and I give them this very safe, collaborative space to just really share and enjoy and hear the other women's stories and questions. And then that will spark a question in their mind that they hadn't even thought about. And so that is just pure magic.
Yeah. Yeah. You're still doing the in-person workshops with all this COVID going on.
Yeah, I didn't for the last year, but I'm hoping to offer them again here this fall. So we'll see how things go with
keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll be able to do the in-person again this fall.
Yeah. I think everybody's ready, but
we
have a few hiccups here to go.
Yeah, we do. So maybe it'll be winter, who knows? But at some point I will be offering again the in-person, which I think is just so much fun.
Winter in Minnesota. I'm trying to put that together. My niece lives in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
So I can go see her.
Yeah, see, you can come up and experience winter in Minnesota.
Yeah, boots.
Boots.
Texans don't have boots.
No.
Well, we have the wrong kind of boots. Let's say we do have boots.
Right, we have cowboy boots. Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah. So I wonder if you just kind of walk us through. You have 3 steps in this handout. And I think it's a wonderful guide. It's a great place to start. And you've given a tremendous amount of support just through this document itself. And so you talk about the limiting beliefs that we all have around money and everything else in our life. But we carry some of those beliefs that came with us when mommy and daddy were creating those beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So the scarcity seems to be one of the biggest things that I think women deal with. How can I handle it? I'll lose it. I can't do this, Is there another one that you see pretty prevalent with most women?
The other one that I hear a lot is, my brain just doesn't do math.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm not capable of handling the money or dealing with the finances. Mm-hmm. And so that's one that I hear a lot as well. So, I think there's, in the book and in the curriculum that I take women through that I created, I have the 6 pillars to financial empowerment. And the first pillar is exploring your money beliefs. And it's the first pillar because I think it's so foundational. And that is what the handout is really all based on as well.
Right.
And because I just think it's one of those things that we rarely think about, let alone talk about. What are those things, those money messages that we heard growing up? And yet they're so deeply embedded in us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're typically, we're reacting to those messages we heard today without often even realizing that that's why we react to money the way that we do. And money is so emotional. I mean, it hits us right at our heart. And it's one of the top reasons that couples fight. And so there's so many reasons to really understand those money messages and those beliefs that you have around money. Mm-hmm. And it's like anything with your mindset. I mean, it's not an easy shift, right? I mean, we're hardwired and we hear something over and over again. And so it's like there's a rut, that's been created in your brain, and it's hard to break out of that rut. Mm-hmm. And so trying to change that money mindset can be difficult. But the first piece is really gaining that awareness. What are the money mindsets that I have, or the limiting beliefs that I have around how I approach money? And so first starting to understand those. And you're right, I mean, scarcity is a big one. A friend of mine was sharing the story that, her mom and dad were both teachers. And, and they were very proud that they were teachers and they were making a difference in the world, and they were getting paid very little. And that was like a badge of honor, that they weren't making money. And so you talk about scarcity, right? And she said, her first job, she went into a nonprofit, and again, was very proud of the fact that she was doing good in the world, but not making any money. And, that was a great thing. And then she realized that, well, actually, you can make money and have an even greater impact in the world if you want to, right? And so she said, shifting that money mindset to money is awesome was hard. And she said she's still working on it. She said, I'm still, battling that. But, I think, so it's first gaining that awareness, what are those money values and beliefs, or those money mindsets that you are telling yourself? And then what can you start telling yourself instead? So instead of telling yourself, my brain doesn't do math, I'm not good at numbers, starting to tell yourself, I'm smart and I'm perfectly capable of understanding this. And so starting to make that shift and starting to tell yourself that new mindset, and, and then taking some sort of action. So, I think one of the biggest things about changing your mindset is having an action. And so choosing, one small thing that you're going to do. And, maybe it's spending an hour, going through your credit card statements and finding, where am I spending money that I don't need to be spending it? Or, what subscriptions do I have that I don't really use anymore that have just slipped in there? I'm guilty of it. I sign up for something and forget and don't use it, and I'm still paying for it. And, so just, maybe it's spending an hour, just an hour, and then rewarding yourself for that somehow, whether it's, watching an hour on Netflix of your favorite show, or, calling your best friend and chatting for a half an hour, or, so setting up some sort of a reward for yourself because you spent this hour doing this new thing. And so I think, those are all steps. And then, in the handout, then I've got, podcasts and books and ones that I think are really interesting and enjoyable for women, that they're going to gain some great knowledge. But it's just it's baby steps. It really is.
Right. You brought this up, and I wholeheartedly agree with this. I have done this before in my credit cards, looking at those, which we should, ultimately get rid of those cards because they're only money. They're only crutches that say we have a more prosperous life than we do until we have to pay for them.
Right.
But it's so easy in this electronic age to have things go on and bill us regularly, and we're totally unaware of it.
Yep.
and PayPal can just gobble up your money and you
Yep.
don't even know it. You just
Yeah.
go, oh, that was easy. I'm on Amazon. Oh, I can buy that. And we never see the cost until we get the bill
Yep.
down the line. So it really is an important step to do, is go back and look at every receipt you have, which you can easily print off every month. And it's just really, it made such a big difference. It was such a eye-opening experience for me when I first did it, because I
Yeah.
was going, wow, I don't even like that. I'm not even listening to that.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So, and you step number one, I think, is pretty big for us. That in your book, that handout again, and I keep emphasizing this handout, and I know everything else you've done is just as awesome as this.
Thank you.
But, accepting where we are. And for me, I had to do a little forgiveness. And I was so glad you brought that up in your handout, because I hadn't always done things correctly. I'd made buying mistakes. I made saving mistakes. I've had too many credit cards. And so those are all things that can send us heavy burdens that we carry. And we like to carry burdens, don't we?
We do. Yes.
We don't want to let ourselves up. So, I think that's a very important step, even to take a picture and say it, or look in the mirror and give yourself some grace here. We're learning. You got to make mistakes to know what you're going to learn.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, yes.
yes.
That is the path we take.
But one of those steps is forgiving yourself for
It
making
is.
those mistakes.
Yeah.
And pick up your next step. Go to your next step.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing is, we don't think about that. I think women as a whole don't think of goals if they've never had a business career. We think maybe of a trip we want to take, but we don't put down the importance of, well, where do we want our money to take us? Where do we want to spend our money? How much will it take for that vacation? Because don't just plan to put it on a card, but plan it into your whole budget for the year. And do you spend time on that in helping them do that in which course is that? All of them?
Yeah.
Or?
All of them. Yeah. So in all of them. So yeah. So the second pillar that I get into is talking about, financial goals and what do you want to achieve with your wealth. Yeah. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about that, and what are your short-term and long-term goals around your money. And again, because again, those conversations that are happening today impact your financial future. And so what is it that you want your future to look like? So we spend some time dreaming. I mean, what are your dreams? I mean, what are those things that you really want to have happen in your life? And they may be achievable, they may not, but let's dream about it, and let's see if we can set a plan for achieving that. And then the next pillar that we go into, pillar 3, is about your financial starting point. And I equate it to, when you're going on a trip, you need to not only know, your destination. When you're booking that flight to your favorite place, you have to know the destination, but you also need to know where you're starting from. And your finances is no different. So where are you today? And so that's really your net worth. And so we spend a fair amount of time talking about net worth. And I think it's really important for women to lay that all out and really understand what those numbers mean and where they stand today, because that's really a benchmark or a gauge that you can use then as you move forward. And it really seems to propel women, in a really different way than they've ever experienced before, when they actually lay out, their assets. So everything that they own, their home, their retirement accounts, their investment accounts, and then they lay out their liabilities, everything that they owe, any debt, mortgage, car loans, things like that. So you take your assets minus your liabilities, that's your net worth number. And that number is just really powerful. And what I found really interesting, something that I didn't expect from having women go through that exercise, was a lot of women would say, oh my gosh, I thought I was being charitable, quite charitable, and I really can be even more charitably inclined than I realized. I can give more, and that makes people feel so good. But having that understanding around their numbers gives them that clarity, and that they hadn't had before. And, I had another woman say, I've been clipping coupons and pinching pennies. And she said, and I've looked at my balance sheet, my net worth over, my advisor shows it to me every time we meet. But until I actually wrote down those numbers myself, I didn't, she said, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm going to have plenty of money to live my life. But until she had actually written it down herself and truly understood what those numbers were and what they meant, it isn't there. And so I think that's a really important step for women to take, is to understand the numbers. And there's a lot of other numbers, but I find the net worth number to be just a really valuable number. And then pillar 4, I love that you bring it up, because I always say I don't use the B word, budget. Because I think, to me, budget sounds like punishment.
It does.
Kind of like a diet, right? I don't want to go on a diet, and I don't want to go on a budget. So I kind of equate the two together, and I don't like either one. So I come at it from the perspective of tomorrow's treasures. What are you saving for the future? Your past promises. What have you already committed to? Your mortgage, your car payment, utilities, things like that. And then whatever's left over is for today's joy. And I think that really resonates with women more so than budget.
Budget has kind of been browbeated over there.
It has. And I think so oftentimes people try to follow a budget, and they don't succeed. And so they feel like they failed. And so trying to give it a different terminology and make it feel different to women, I think, is, again, just trying to make that feel more welcoming.
I was just sitting here when you, after doing that exercise, finishing the 1, 2, 3 step where they get their worth. If you were in a group, I could just feel the energy that would be rising off that group. Because they've accomplished, they know, it's the knowledge that they've gotten about themselves. One of my big things is get to know yourself. If you don't know how much money you have, you've got a big hole.
That's so true, Joyce. Oh my God.
What a hole. So, you don't know if you're a pauper or, on the edge or where you are. But anyway, I think I just love what you're doing. I'm not kidding. It's time. It's past time.
It is time. We need to take our power back. We really do. And I think now is the time. And then I spend a lot of time on investments. That's the 5th pillar. And I have some really fun analogies that I use there that again, trying to help women connect those dots in a very different way, so that when you sit down with your financial advisor, if you have one, or you're sitting down with your spouse to talk about your financial situation, there's so much lingo and jargon. And I wanted to find a way for women to start to relate to those terms, because we need to understand them. We need to understand a stock and a bond and asset allocation and diversification. And we hear that terminology thrown around, and we just immediately glaze over because we don't understand it. And I liken it to when you go into a doctor and you have a medical condition, and I glaze over when I'm in with the doctor, but what's the first thing I do? I go home and I start to Google it, and I try to understand, what was he telling me, because I need to understand that, right? And I think women need to take that same approach with their finances. If they're hearing terminology that doesn't make sense to them, they need to figure it out. They need to take the time to look it up and understand. And I'm trying to give women an easier, faster, simpler way to get there, to break through it all.
Well, are you encouraging women to become their own investors? Are you suggesting just the different avenues one can follow for
I
investing?
try to help them understand all the different avenues. And so, I mean, I am a believer in having a financial advisor just because I think that, I mean, when I was sitting in that role, that was what I was doing 24/7. I mean, that was
Right.
what I did. I saw, I was working with multiple families and individuals, and so in foundations and trusts, and so I had that experience.
You have some
And
great stories.
oh yeah,
I'm
oh
sitting here
yes.
going, stories, stories.
I do have some great stories.
Yeah.
I worked with such amazing people, and but that's what you're doing. And so not only am I dealing with you, but I've got, I can share, without naming people, but I can share, I know that this worked for this person, or this person tried this and this works really well. And so there's that knowledge and that immersion, in it. And so I think that's really valuable to have somebody, if you can find somebody who you really like and trust. And I no longer do any of that. I'm not, I'm purely focused on financial education just because I think that's so important. And it's hard to do both. I
Right.
think as a financial advisor, I had a hard time, working. I tried to work in the education because it was really important to me, but I think as a financial advisor, you've got so many other things to do.
Yeah.
And so fitting in the education, it isn't that simple. And so I want to partner with financial advisors and partner with women to get them that education.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I think passive income is one of the challenges that I've seen that several women want
Yeah.
past the age of working. They want passive income is money that you invest in something and it produces a cash,
Yep.
um,
Income. Yep.
an income. So for those out there that might not know that, that's one of my words I could throw around.
I love it. I love it. That's
Yes.
great.
It's about as far as I can go. But I think that is a place where women, particularly as they are aging, they like that steady income. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be huge. It'd be nice if it was. But any money coming in is helpful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's, when you're working with a professional, and if you have the desire to do that yourself, that's fantastic. But when you're working with an advisor, again, having that conversation with them that you want that passive income, they're going to be able to help establish a portfolio and investments that are going to, make that happen.
right.
And so again, but it's, if you're not involved in the conversation and you're not telling them that that's what's important to you and that's what you're shooting for in the next 5 years, 10 years, or now, or, so, but having that conversation and saying, this is what's important to me. I need to have this much income generated from my portfolio. So if
Yeah.
you're not at the table, you're not part of that conversation.
Well, I'm just so impressed that you've come up with this. I mean, I've seen money, I've seen courses where you talk about um, law of attraction, attracting in money that way. Um, and I am a believer in law of attraction, but I do think there's a responsibility that we can move ourselves forward with. Just the hard facts, ma'am, just the hard facts. That's all we need.
Yeah.
And then you can go to the law of attraction to pull in. And I do believe in the power of law of attraction. Yep. But I do think there is a foundation that we can put together to know where we are, know where we want to go, and how we're going to get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I just love. Now, when somebody goes to your website, what do they find on your website?
So they will find just a little bit about kind of my background and about the woman that I serve and why I think it's so important to understand more about your finances. I have on there a lot of videos and different presentations that I've done, so they can watch that to get more comfortable with me. And if I, what I tell people is find someone. I don't care if it's me, quite honestly, but find someone that you relate to and that you understand how they're explaining the concepts. And so that's really the most important thing. And that's why I, in that handout, I give the books and the podcast, because I don't care if you learn from me. I just want you to learn, because I know it is going to make such a huge difference in your life and in your future and in your family's life and future. And so, so find someone. But, so I've got, some of the different speaking engagements that I've done. I have speaking engagements that I might have coming up that if you wanted to participate in. So I try to give a variety in there, but yeah, you should be able, I've got podcasting. So this podcast will go on there, of course.
Oh, wonderful.
This recording. And so, yeah, because I want to give people the opportunity to figure out if they relate to me and I feel comfortable and they enjoy learning from me.
So is that where they get your book?
Yep, well? They can get the book from there. Yep, the book is on there as well. They can buy the book. They can buy the courses. Sign up for anything.
Is that the only place they can get the book, or can they get it from Amazon?
The book is also on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So yeah, so they can get the book there as well.
Yes. So, and then they can find out your course schedule.
Yep.
And would you tell them how to get the 3-step guide also, please?
Yes, there's a link that I think, are you going to put it in your show notes, the link?
Yes.
To the guide. So there's a link to the guide. There's also a financial wellness quiz that's on my website. They can go and they can take the financial wellness quiz. And the financial wellness quiz will tell you if you are blissfully unaware, if you're definitely distressed, if you're casually curious, or you're financially focused. So you'll end up in one of those 4 categories. And so the quiz will just kind of take you through and ask you a few questions. And so you can do that. And that's just kind of fun to go take and kind of see where you're at. And then there's the link to the 3-step guide that hopefully you will provide in your notes.
Yes.
I have it here in front of me, but.
Yeah. You can go to, let me see. I'm looking here. Well, it's on your website. Oh,
it's actually not on my website.
It's on Facebook, right? No,
it's a special link. So I think it's so it's www.elegantwealth.com/3-step-guide.
Yes.
So that's where you'll find it. So yeah, so if you type that in, you should be able to come to the link that it'll take you to the link that will get you the guide.
Yes. Okay. Now that I've pushed it so much, they have to be able to find it. It's a must.
Oh, good.
Yes. So it's just your website /3-step-guide.
Yep.
Very good.
Yes.
All right. So there are things, as we're coming to the close of our, I have some questions that I ask every guest. And so to the best of your ability, would you answer these?
All right.
They're so much fun.
I'm ready.
So would you share any pitfall that you avoided in this journey to become this advisor to women? Did you make a mistake in moving forward?
I think one of the things that I wish I would have done was spend a little bit, I'm not a marketing person at all. And I hadn't really been engaged in social media. And I certainly wish I would have started some of that long before I left the corporate world and established, you know, more of a presence, social media
Mhm.
presence. So
Mhm.
that's something, and then just learning more about marketing and because there's just been a huge learning curve, huge learning curve from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marketing is definitely, and I'm not particularly strong in the use of the computer. You probably are because you're so computer connected in your
Well,
industry. But yes, I would agree with you. Marketing is a big, big deal
yeah.
in particularly entrepreneurship. You have to be able to get your name out there and get what you are selling or promoting to
Yeah.
the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. But you've got that covered now.
Getting there. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely stronger, but I really wish I would have spent time before making this leap. But
Well, I do want to tell you that I'm very impressed with all of the prep work you did do. I mean, the getting the certificate in coaching and all of that. I think that says a lot about you,
oh, thank
actually.
you. Yeah.
In
And I
your,
loved it. It was
yeah.
fun.
Did you find out you were a student?
Oh, I'm definitely a lifelong learner. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
very much so. My husband kept saying, you do have to at some point put this all to work, right?
Oh, killjoy.
Oh, shoot.
Really? So, what is the next question and the final one for this afternoon is what was your greatest success
Oh, I think
in this
it's
journey? I mean, you could a lot to talk about in your personal life, but in this journey.
it's been the women who have seen such transformation. I mean, that truly is what fills my soul. It's seeing the women experience the transformation and be on a completely new journey. I wanted to just read you a woman who went through my program. She said she's a musician, and she said, she really didn't learn about money growing up. And when she got married, her husband was all too happy to take control, as we talked about
Yes, yes,
earlier, of it and handle it
yes,
for both of them.
yeah.
And before he passed away, he asked their daughter to handle the finances for her when he was gone.
Mhm.
And she started feeling guilty about that and feeling like she had kind of shoved this responsibility onto her daughter's shoulders. So she went through one of my programs, and this is what she said afterwards, and I just thought it was so incredibly beautiful. She says, what strikes me is that you helped me understand my role and responsibility in managing my wealth. You opened a door that I had tried to nail shut by showing me that despite my antipathy, finance is a big part of my life. I can shut my eyes and let others lead me, or I can open them and decide what I want and where I want to go. I now have the confidence and enthusiasm to explore this whole new world that has been opened up to me.
Wow.
That that is my joy.
Did
That is
that
my
not make you feel good? That if you
It
have
did.
arrived, there's your goal right there,
Yes,
your
it
dream.
is. That
That's a beautiful tribute to you in
isn't
your
that
work.
gorgeous? Yeah, that is my success.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, I want to say that I have been overjoyed with um, your being on this podcast because it's a big deal, I think, for women to know they have the competence to
Yes.
take this on. This is no matter how slow you have to go, it is there for you, and it's very capable. It's very reachable,
Yes.
and so. And I love that you're a woman doing this. Honestly, I just think it's so perfect.
Thank you.
So, I appreciate that you were here. I will definitely be looking at your site because I just think this is so important for each woman out there listening. So, thank you very much, Jayne, for reaching out to me. I'm glad you found me in the world of podcasting for sure.
Yes,
So,
me too. Thank you, Joyce,
it,
for having me.
oh, it's been a pleasure. So, listeners, please take this information to heart. We are women and we are she women, and we can move forward and be powerful. If you have any question, you reach out to Jayne, ask her question, go to her website. I think there's a support section in there, Jayne, isn't there? They can reach you.
Yep, there absolutely is. Yep.
Yeah.
They can reach out to me directly.
So for this week, share this again, as I always encourage you, share this with any woman in your community, because I'll bet she's struggled with money. She's not reached out. She's not developed. She's needing these skills. So you could be a real hero today by doing that with your friends, your family, other females in your family. So I like to think of this as a major, major contributor to your freedom moving forward. So I'm so glad you were here today, because I know this can change your life. And I appreciate that you came. Thank you. Share this. And when you download that wonderful 3-step guide, you can start taking your baby steps. So thank you for being here today. This has just been awesome. Thank you. And we will see you next week. Have a great week.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.